Well, there it is. Welcome. We're going to start off with a map review. This map is created by Tenshi. He was responsible for Rivulet and another map that I reviewed. Very nice maps indeed. Lots of flowing paths, and this map seems to mimic similarities between the couple of maps that I reviewed of his. More so Rivulet, I think. I need to double check. Warfare Isle was the one that was more similar to like a Reign of Chaos map, I think, and Rivulet was more of the flowing with the water in the middle, I believe. So this reminds me more of that. It is actually very concise, neat, tidy. It's amazing like how sort of open yet closed this map is, because it's pretty small. It's like 102 times 108 or something. So that's pretty damn small as it goes for 1 versus 1 maps. So that means that you can sort of reach your opponent very quickly, or your expansions might be more exposed. So let's take a look at the original starting position here. Well, actually, first of all, let's just take in to grasp what the map is. It's essentially a mix between Lordaeron Summer or Lordaeron Fall with Village. So it's harkening more along the Village tile set line, but it still sort of brings in some of that reminiscence of autumn coming with the green trees. But, you know, the brown is taking over. The trees are dying. The terrain is changing with the seasons. But it's a lived-in area. Lots of doodads. I mean, just taking a look at the outside is awesome. Like, you got this Red Creek camp here. Like, there's gold to be had. But, you know, obviously you got to go through a rather nasty creek camp. I always love when you got these kind of rocky terrains that sort of like essentially cut off the map without it looking sort of bland, just black. Do you know what I mean? It's just dark at this point. No, this is essentially where the map is kind of cut off here, but it still looks like it goes on for a while. So very nicely done around the outside as usual. Little details here and there just go a long way to sort of making the map feel that much more interesting to sort of view. I mean, cool little area over here as well, sort of maybe a little hidden bandit cave. So very nicely done. Let's come over and take a look at the object manager, I would say. So you got your 2 players, the creatures that you'll be fighting. Well, let's take a look at the neutral building. So you've got 1 lab and 1 mercenary camp, but 6 gold mines. So that's quite interesting. Of course, you got 2 shops, which I think is often a good idea to have a couple of shops, just in case one player picks... I mean, only Echo Isles, I think, has 1 shop. Otherwise, generally speaking, most maps have 2. It's not to say that you can't... You have to have 2, but it gives players more options of scrolls and stuff like that to pick up in case their opponent has picked up an invulnerability potion. That's obviously going to give them quite a massive advantage. So that's one of the tactical things you could argue that needs to be done on Echo Isles, is to pick up that invulnerability potion when it's available, because it denies your opponent from picking it up, more likely to kill your opponent's heroes then. But 2 shops is always welcome in my books. Now, Lab and Merc are sort of in the middle here. Now, can be dangerous because of how exposed the natural expansion is, because this expansion is closer to the main base. This expansion is arguably safer because your opponent would have a slightly longer time to get down there, but it takes a longer time for you to get there. But at least your path is relatively clean and protected. Your opponent can't easily cut you off if you are sending reinforcements from underneath. A little bit like Northern Isles, where it's sort of easier to protect your expansion from the top side, because your opponent can't be like in multiple places at the same time unless they want to split their units too much. I'm doing a little bit of rambling here though, so I don't mind having like 1 of each if they're in vital positions that both players can access. This is going to be a bit trickier for Night Elf players though, because that creek camp looks quite tricky indeed, and obviously if you try to put an Ancient of War to creep this camp, you're going to have a bit of a tough time, because your opponent, if they're smart, will not let you get away with it. So Night Elf players often like to have some sort of orange merc camp to try to do, but they're not going to have it in this circumstance. No, no, no. So what would they do instead? They've either got a small green camp, this is a little bit more rewarding. You got 9 levels there. That's pretty respectable and a decent chunky target to attack. You might be able to get away with an Ancient of War like here, and then sort of waddle up to the tree, pull round, and then attack at this position, which would, you know, that would make the Night Elf players feel a little bit better. Of course, it's closer to the middle, but it's still closer to their own base. It's far less exposed than being out here. And the same goes for this position over here. So I'm just thinking about how the races would act. Human should have a pretty easy time taking this natural. It looks really easy. It's really close to their base. They can always pull straight down, and your opponents would have to come at them from certain angles. I think this is good for human, but obviously the natural is pretty exposed and close to the middle, so bear that in mind. Flame strike on the trees could give you a hard time. Hey, Sona, thank you very much there for the 42 months. Yikes. Thank you very much, Sona. Appreciate that. Undead, I mean, it's hard to argue with undead expansions. They're pretty simple, straightforward. There's not much you can do to sort of stop them, apart from just destroying the graveyard, not the graveyard, the haunted gold mine, but I don't think that needs to be gone into. I don't think that's going to affect how you would design a map. Orc, they don't often take a fast expansion, but if they did, this would be relatively easy for them to keep alive as well, I think. So yeah, let's not worry about that too much. Let's get into a little bit of the creeping, I suppose. So you're going to spawn here. You're either going to come to this green camp, which you could pull round with a Crypt Fiend or something like that and start creeping it here, or again, Ancient of War, pull them in and then sit the Ancient of War down, or move them over to the next creep camp. So nice positioning. You can pull them around. It's pretty safe, protected from your opponent. The reward is a level 1 permanent item, which is fine. Not too special, but at least better than a tome. It's always a bit disappointing to just get a tome. I think you can have creatures like green camps that drop tomes that are sort of closer to the middle of the map, and they're only like level 5 creep camp in total, level 4, like a couple of skeleton archers or something like that. You just kill them if they're in the way or on the way, and you just need something to level up on. They're not like a primary goal. You're not going there for an item. You're not going there specifically for any goal other than to mix with what your strategy has allowed and the gameplay has allowed. So for example, if you had like a level 2.8 archmage and you're like, I just need to kill something to get level 3, that's what those skeleton archers are for. Otherwise, most of the time you wouldn't touch those. It's just an example. Level 2 permanent item here, so that's much more rewarding, so you would more likely want to do this, but it is a little bit closer to your opponent, so I kind of like that. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but the safer creep camp is less rewarding. The more risky creep camp is, you know, obviously a bit more rewarding. Again, Ancient of War could come here. You could definitely put that there. I don't think that's going to aggro the gold mine. Do that and then waddle over here, eat a tree, pull this creep camp round. I can see potential. It's nice and open, but again, you've put in some blockers here that make it a little bit harder for your opponent to just sort of all in you. And you've got sort of 2 exit points here that go towards the middle of the map, let alone the ones that go around. So if you were getting really pushed in from one angle, you can always have some sort of way to move your units away from your opponent. I mean, look at this design. Very nice. This is kind of interesting. A couple of spiders. Level 1 permanent, so it's a smaller deal. I don't know if he's got the annoying envenom though. Level 1 permanent might be a bit brutal because you don't necessarily want to get poisoned, but it's only level 6 in total, so level 1, level 2, maybe level 2 charged items, something like that. That's all fine. I think I like the idea of a charged item because it maybe means that you could sort of get a lightning shield or a sentry ward and put it over here so you can keep an eye on your opponent. I noticed that on Last Refuge. It's actually really kind of strong. The troll camp, the middle one drops potentially a sentry ward, and you tend to get that one quite often, even though it's supposed to be like 33%, 33.3%. But yeah, if you get that sentry ward, I had this game where this poor undead did not stand a chance. I was playing orc, and I got the sentry ward like right at the start of the game. I put one like at his expansion and one on the sort of high mountain top where the lab is, but it can show vision going north and east, which are the only 2 exit points from where the Last Refuge is. So I knew exactly where he was going to be, when he was going to be, and I creepjacked him like 3 times in the game, and he didn't get anything. He crept about 300 experience in total, and I had like 1,400. It was like ridiculous. He couldn't do anything. Again, I ramble, but I suppose I can ramble a bit more in this. So yeah, creep camps are going to be mimicked. So same deal. So you got like only one little bonus green camp. I wouldn't mind seeing like another bonus green camp sort of maybe in the middle. I don't know whether it would aggro if it's too close or whether it would clump up and be counted as that creep camp. So there is issues for space in there, but perhaps just one extra little thing. But it's not a big deal again. Don't have to sort of damage the map just for the sake of putting just one small green camp in. Level 5, level 2 charged item. The shop is good. Not too difficult, but meaty enough. So again, look at the Echo Isles. You got sort of like a big meaty Ogre Mauler, but he doesn't do too much damage, and a couple of Berserkers, which are quite nasty, but they can be killed quite quickly by Footmen, Ghouls, you know, even just Fiends and Archers. So you pick those units off, and then you deal with the Ogre Mauler, who's not really hitting you for much, but he takes a while to bring down. So you know, you're not going to get too punished for going to the shop, so that's good to know. But you will be much more punished if you go for the lab or the mercenary camp. So the mercenary camp is going to be the point of contention here, because it's going to affect how some races, like human players, might like to pick up a priest. I mean, Night Elf really like to pick up units. Hi, YouTube? No. I mean, I'm not planning on putting this on YouTube. I think YouTube now is mostly exclusive to custom games. At least that's something I'm trialing out right now. But I'm just creating this for Tenshi just so he can sort of look at the Twitch VOD or something and maybe get something from it. Just give him feedback. I don't necessarily want to go through every single item drop because it takes forever. Level 4 charged item is very nice. Level 4 permanent item, very nice. Again, good differentiation. It's a rewarding enough item for what the creep camp is, and it's in the middle, so your opponent shouldn't be able to do it too easily, so the item should be pretty good, but you got one permanent, one charged. Very good. Middle's nice and open, but you still got a little bit of blocking to play around. You know, run away from a Blade Master, try to cut off their vision, etc., etc. Same could be said for units. I think that more or less covers the grand deal. What was the expansion? Level 3 permanent item is pretty rewarding for not too difficult a creep camp. Level 14 though. I mean, these assassins, you got one assassin at least there, haven't you? Yeah. And they spread poison, so that's quite nasty. I think it's actually like a really simplified 1 versus 1 map that sort of harkens what it is that I would like to see from 1 versus 1. Lots of flowing paths, yet open at the same time. I wouldn't mind just an extra green camp in there, but it's not really a big deal. Let's take a look at the red creep camp, which is, again, a good position on the outskirts of the map. Players can go for it, but it's going to be, you know, 10 or so minutes into the game minimum before they kind of get to that point, unless they've had a very easy game. So it's something that you can fight versus. Level 5 permanent item, very nice. I always like some sort of powerful item, because obviously I'm typically a 4 versus 4 RT player, so Market Square is always exciting, because you can always get those OP items, and then that can sort of change how you play the game. So level 5, very nicely rewarding for essentially a pretty tricky creep camp. So I've seen level 5 on lesser creep camps, and you got like some bonus creeps here on the outside that you wouldn't normally go for, but if you're in that position or you're moving in that direction or your opponents cut you off, it's something you can creep that will give a reasonable amount of experience that you can do without too much hassle. So yeah, I mean, without rambling too much, you got the critters, that's fine. Just very nicely done. Again, I mean, you do a really good job of making these maps. I don't know how quickly you pump them out, because I don't know, but it's very good. I have no idea like why you wouldn't have this map on the 1 versus 1 ladder pool, apart from the experience of playing it. Like, if it was on the 1 versus 1 ladder pool and then you play it and you go, oh, this creep camp's always giving problems, or this player can never do this because they're playing this specific race, you know, you would need beta testing and play testing, but I don't have the time to do that myself. So you just have to take the assumption from what you're seeing in the map, and what I'm seeing from the map, it looks like it would be perfectly applicable to the 1 versus 1 ladder pool. The only argument being somewhat too close to your opponent with this extra gold mine. Whether that gold mine is necessary, it could add strategy, it could be too advantageous for maybe human players, potentially, if they can secure that expansion and then get it. And their opponent can then, every time they want to come through the middle, as long as there's a tower or two here, you've got like a couple of towers, and then nearby militia to protect it. It could be almost too advantageous for human. But I don't know for sure without sort of playing it. But yeah, very good. Well done there, Tenshi. Nicely done. There's your little map review of Autumn Leaves Beta. So, Very nice, and good to see sort of like a village as well, without it being sort of too horrible on the eyes. Because there's a few village maps, and there's just, if it's all brown, it just like it's kind of depressing. So you've managed to sort of at least spruce it up a bit with some light. Okay.